The university was started by a group of men getting together, and they selected a president, Daniel E. Jenkins. Daniel Jenkins was, in my opinion, one of the great men of his generation. And it's always been a matter of sadness to me that the university has never recognized the greatness of its founder.
The University of Nebraska at Omaha, to say the least, had humble beginnings. It was created in 1908 as Omaha University, a private Presbyterian college located at 24th and Pratt Streets in North Omaha. 26 students, most of them from Omaha Central High School, attended its first classes in Reddick Mansion, a donated and repurposed Victorian house. It was led by the Reverend Dr. Daniel Edward Jenkins, an ordained minister. Jenkins was a gifted, powerful speaker whose deep voice was said to be spellbinding. He was a teacher, a philosopher, and an idealist. Most of all, though, he was a dreamer. Jenkins would serve 18 years as president, most of that time at no pay, as the fledgling university struggled to find its financial footing. Slowly but steadily, the university grew. In 1930, it became a municipal university owned by the city of Omaha. In 1938, it moved to its present site, at the time just outside Omaha's city limits. In 1968, it joined the University of Nebraska system. Without Jenkins, though, it's likely UNO would not have survived its first decade, let alone into the next century. Yet today, Jenkins remains unknown to most of the 115,000 alumni and nearly 20,000 students, faculty, and staff. Other than a modest collection on him in the library archives that includes his office chair, his typewriter, and copies of his addresses, there has been little to commemorate and celebrate UNO's founding father. That changed in October 2020 with the installation of a bronze sculpture of Jenkins at UNO's busiest spot, outside the Milo Bell Student Center. The sculpture was commissioned by UNO graduates Al and Beverly Thompson, longtime supporters of UNO, who previously had commissioned sculptures of Dean John Lucas and Dr. C. Glenn Lewis at the College of Business Administration's Mammal Hall. A discussion the Thompsons had when deciding to commission a statue for the main campus eventually led them to Jenkins.
We said, well, if there's going to be another statue, there obviously should be of the person who founded the university. None of us would be here today if it wasn't for him. We wouldn't have this building. We wouldn't have all the other buildings and so forth that are here if it wasn't for him. So if anybody deserves a statue on the Omaha University campus, it's Daniel Jenkins.
As with their other campus statue commissions, the Thompsons selected Omaha sculptor Matthew Plachek to create the Jenkins piece.
I wanted the look of the sculpture to actually have this look that he's always been here, that the sculpture's almost always been a part of this campus, and that he is actually, in his pose, that he's standing there with his hat, and he's got a book in his pocket and the pocket watch, and he's almost envisioning looking off to the future, or looking off to just kind of the empty, you know, the empty lots or whatever, and seeing what this campus could be and envisioning it with the students and the buildings.
The anonymity of Jenkins today is surprising given how well known he was throughout Omaha during his time as president. When he died, 700 people attended his memorial service, many of them Omaha's most prominent and influential figures. Telegrams and letters flooded into the university from across the country and even outside the United States. Jenkins was remembered as a father in several senses. He and his wife, Annie, had 5 children. The youngest, Daniel Jenkins Jr., was born in 1916 when his father was 50 years old. 3 of the older children attended and graduated from the university their father led. Robert Jenkins would receive the Citation Alumni Achievement Award in 1953. Jenkins also was a spiritual father. His first ministerial assignment was as pastor of New London Presbyterian Church in Pennsylvania, the oldest Presbyterian church in the United States. He later came to Omaha as a faculty member for the Omaha Presbyterian Seminary, and he was among the founders and first 2 pastors at Dundee Presbyterian. William McEwen, a minister in the Third Presbyterian Church of Pittsburgh, called Jenkins one of the great theologians of this generation. Grandson Daniel Jenkins III, an ophthalmologist in Houston, recalls his grandfather's national reputation.
I know he was very highly respected, not only there in Omaha, but around the country, I think, in Presbyterian circles. At the time he lived, he was one of the most highly educated men in America. I mean, he had like 5 degrees, several honorary degrees, and that he had gotten his master's degree from University of Melbourne, Australia. At one time, he'd been offered to head a seminary, I think, in Louisville, and it would have been a big step forward for him, but he turned it down because I think he wanted to stay there in Omaha to attend to that university.
More than anything, though, Jenkins was remembered as the father of the University of Omaha. And a devoted father he was. Once asked how many hours he worked, Jenkins replied, "Well, I've averaged from 12 to 14 for so long, I've forgotten. It has agreed with me. I have never been seriously handicapped by sickness." That changed in November 1926, when Jenkins began to experience mental exhaustion and took a leave of absence. He spent time at Johns Hopkins Hospital, then at a private sanitarium in New Jersey, where his son, Finley, lived. He recovered briefly, prompting hopes that he would return to Omaha. But his health took another downturn, and he died on Thanksgiving Day, 1927. He was 61.
It was pretty well known that my grandfather died an early death from exhaustion, I think. He may have had just kind of a slight breakdown, and I think he may have had a stroke there at the end, but he died of exhaustion.
Almost 100 years after his death, UNO is among the nation's foremost metropolitan universities with a global impact. Nearly 150,000 degrees have been issued since Jenkins conferred the first one in 1911.
He was so devoted to what he was doing that, hours didn't mean anything to him. He just kept plugging away and plugging away, plugging away. I wonder what Daniel Jenkins would think if he drove up to the administration building, which was the first building on campus, and got out of the car, and somebody said, "Daniel, this is the University of Nebraska, Omaha. It encompasses some 234 acres. There are 72 buildings, and there's over 1.1 million square feet of space." I mean, he would be flabbergasted. Even the visionary he was, I don't believe that he could have envisioned this campus going from Dodge to south of West Center Road with all of the improvements and so forth that are here. But more important than that, sticks and bricks are important. The most important thing are the people that are inside the sticks and bricks, the professors and the chancellors and the staff and so forth that are educating all of the people that have come through here. And he would be most proud. I'm sure he was very concerned about the people that were hired, that were going to carry on the education that he had in mind. But he would have to be absolutely astonished at the quality of the people that are at this university.
Jenkins was buried in Forest Lawn, the final resting place to many of Omaha's founding families and most notable names: Durham, Joslin, Kuntz, Kiewit, Storrs, the men and women who built Omaha. For nearly 100 years, the Daniel Jenkins headstone and marker were the only public tribute to the man whose contributions were every bit as impressive as theirs. Wrote the Omaha Bee News after his death, Jenkins built a monument in the hearts of men by his inspiring words and example. Nearly a century later, a monument now honors Jenkins, standing on campus and watching over his maverick family for many years to come.